Welcome to the Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise podcast with Dr. William T. Choctaw, MD, JD, where the doctor helps you unlock your full potential by equipping you with tools and knowledge in the areas of health, wealth, and wisdom, anchored in his experience as a business executive, a physician surveyor for the Joint Commission, a former mayor, and over 50 years of experience as a general surgeon. You've got questions, he's got answers. So let's get started. Here's Dr. William T. Choctaw, MD, JD.
Why did you and your wife decide to go? Were there any other reasons, or was that the only factor?
Well, we just had a heart for it.
Okay.
I know that, at least in my particular case, although I didn't have to go through anything like that, I thank God every day, for my parents. I was adopted as an infant, pretty much around the same age as, or at least the process started around the same age as the one that we got 5 days after they were born. My trajectory in life could have been totally different. I could have been another statistic.
Sure.
On one end, on the negative end. But
your experience was a positive one as a child with adopted parents.
Oh, I didn't know that there was any difference.
Yeah.
I didn't.
Which is the ideal.
Yeah, I didn't know anything about any of that. I can remember there was some person called a caseworker at the time.
Right.
It didn't dawn on me what that was all about. It was just a white woman that would come and and talk with me and
ask you if everything was okay and any problems and
that nature. And I was always determined to show her that I could read and I could write and I could, that and the other. I didn't think, anything about it. And that's how Ezell and George Hammonds were. They just, treated me like I was blood,
Right.
and which is better than some people who are blood treat their kids.
Sure. Were you an only child?
No, actually not. I have, they had a biological daughter, Rosalie. We call her Bootsy. She's still alive, although
Was she older or younger than you?
She's older. She's older.
Okay.
She's 80 and she's dealing with diabetes and she's on dialysis now, as a matter of fact.
So it was just the two of you?
No, it was myself. She was, out of the home and grown.
Got it.
But she would always come over. But I had a sibling, Anthony. He's younger, and Myron, another sibling. He was about 4 or 5 months older than I was. He eventually was reunited with his mother.
Okay.
Anthony and myself, we were adopted. Anthony is the opposite of me.
Okay.
Sure. Well, whatever genetics he has, he's the opposite of me.
In what way?
Well, let me frame it this way. When I joined the Air Force, which was, a first for anyone, in the family to go that way. And there was a lot of reasons why I even went that way. I'll share that a little bit later. I had to get security clearances. And so the government came out and they were interviewing people in the community and my family and my, and Anthony, he had issues. And so, I got the clearance and everything, but I couldn't really associate with him because of the people that he associated with. Right. And so, that was him. He chose a different, lifestyle.
Okay.
And so, there was always something up, always something going on, and
something negative.
Negative, yes.
Okay. So what did you learn from all that? I mean, just that phase of your life.
Hopefully you'll come back pretty soon. There we go.
Okay, there you are. But so what did you learn from all that? What was your takeaway?
Well, just focus on what I need to do because he's going to do whatever he's going to do, and my parents didn't want to really show a whole lot of partiality between us two. So whenever he got involved with something, it was kind of looked at, it could have been either one of you that did that. It probably could have been, but it really wasn't in most cases there. And so I was determined to just focus on what I needed to do and being the best that I can be, in whatever that was. And I was I had a very full, childhood, very, very full. I was brought up in the church. My father was the chairman of the deacon board, and I usually ran in his circles there. And that's how I kind of got into a number of different official and unofficial leadership type of, situations there by running with him. But in one case there, I was what we call the liaison for the Sunday school. I've always been involved with the Sunday school in one way or the other.
Interesting.
And my job, and I couldn't have been no more than 11 or 12 or so. I was in charge of collecting all the money from all of the classrooms.
Okay.
As well as making sure that all of the teachers had their literature. And
so that's quite a bit of responsibility for an 11-year-old.
Oh, most definitely. And I really can't recall how I actually got into it. It was, I think, especially as it relates to leadership there, I find that it kind of starts with a question, like, what if this was that way or that was this way? And then you take the initiative to do whatever that is. And someone appreciates or likes whatever that is, and they let you continue. And so I think I went into the Sunday school office with Sister Ferris. I still remember like it was yesterday. And I just started helping her. We were talking, and I just started helping her count the money, from the Sunday school, because it was all on her. And she seemed like she was just overwhelmed. She never had, time for anything or whatever, and so what has become a famous phrase, let me help you with that. It's so
interesting. Was this a small church, a large church? Or
it was a rather large church. It was about, I guess, around the same size as St. Stephen.
Okay, that's pretty long.
But a lot of firsts, because this was back in the 70s. And the church started in a high school, not started, but one of the locations that I can recall, actually there's a lot of parallels with St. Stephen, because it also was a product of splitting.
Okay.
It had split from Mount Enon in Dayton. Right. This is all in Dayton.
What city is this?
Dayton, Ohio.
Okay.
Home of the Wright brothers.
Okay.
University of Dayton Flyers.
Okay. And thus you went into the Air Force.
Yeah. Also the home of Wright-Patterson Air Force Base.
Right. Okay. Makes sense. And how was school for you? Junior high, high school, elementary, whatever you remember?
It was all wonderful. And I think I was going down that path there too, as school life. It was all wonderful. I was, probably a BC student and an A student, in history. I know that because that's something that I embrace, that in current events and that sort of thing, in English and, and that sort of thing. No problems there. I studied music right around 12. I was what they would call a classically trained trombonist. Well, yeah, because I could play Beethoven and
okay, no, I understand. I just want to make sure I heard you correctly. Okay, all right.
I was in the concert concerto band, as well as the jazz lab band, as well as the marching band.
This is at high school?
No, actually, this was prior to high school. It carried on into high school. This was when I was. A lot of things happened when I was 12 and 13 years old. I was me and a partner of mine were the first and the youngest to ever have a chair, what they call a chair, in the band of the marching band of the senior high school.
So you were in middle school at the time?
Yes. Okay. We weren't even freshmen.
Okay.
And, and we played those horns. And we actually formed a band. This is the 70s. So, and I think I alluded to it in another interview with one of our brothers at the church. He was talking about the people in Gary, Indiana. And
Right.
I shared with him,
Brother
I'm from
Nathan,
Dayton,
yeah.
Ohio. And that's the home of all kinds of bands, from Zap, Roger and the Human Body, Slave, Dayton, Platypus, Lakeside, all of these group. Lakeside is famous for the Fantastic Voyage. Come
Okay.
on, right? Those guys. Anywho, there was just a lot of music going on. And so we formed a band ourselves, and we used to pattern ourselves like Earth, Wind, and Fire, in brass construction and mandrill.
Okay.
We had electric tape, reflective tape on us, and we'd come in from the back with cowbells, and then we get on stage and we'd play, and we'd win these talent shows and that sort of thing there. And the fact of the matter is, we could actually play and read music. We wrote
Okay.
and did the music, and we did that for the marching band as well, under the direction of Clarence Harold Brown out of Grambling.
Okay.
And that's actually how we looked, like the Grambling band and stuff.
Got it. So this is okay, high school. Okay. So
Yeah.
what happened after high school?
After high school, well, to get through high school, I was working for I really did idolize my dad, not before God or anything, but
Right.
right up there, because he was a true man of God. And that was in the home, at church, as well as at work.
Excellent.
And
So you had a good role model.
oh, yes. He worked for General Motors, a division called Delco Products.
Okay.
And so I, in my last couple of years of school, I went to what they called a joint vocational school, and I studied mechanical drafting. And so during the summertime, I was able to get a job working for General Motors in their engineering department. And they, some kind of way, they gave me the keys to the office.
Okay.
I was the person that would go in there and turn on all the lights, turn on all the machines, and get everything ready for the engineers when they came in. And we did, lots of reproduction, where I was in the reproduction area there. And they would give me little bitty projects and everything to change this line or that line or whatever, mechanical drafting type of thing,
Right.
applied to what I was studying. And the machines were gigantic, and the drawings were gigantic as well, which later became either automobiles or parts for automobiles and that sort of thing there. And so I went through that, and fast forward to senior year, General Motors was offering me, a very nice promotion and an actual position and a job work there, in the engineering department, as an apprentice draftsman.
Right.
And so I thought about it because, well, here was the dilemma. At the same time, I had been testing and had scored, high enough to qualify for the Air Force. And so the Air Force, came calling at the same time. So I had these two competing things there. And I think General Motors, they had an education, assistance program as well, but theirs wasn't as good as the Air Force.
Okay. What was the difference?
Oh, well, the Air Force, they paid 80%. In General Motors, I'm really not certain. I'm assuming that they had one. They weren't bringing everything. The Air Force was bringing everything. They say, "Hey, we can do this for you, that, and that."
And they would pay 80% of your college expenses?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay.
And so, you can see the world.
Okay.
And that was appealing to me. Dayton was okay, but and I
wanted to see the world.
Yeah, I had been a few places. I had been to, D.C., because in that position as a liaison for the Sunday school, they sent me places sometimes, Okay. I remember the first time I was ever homesick was going to D.C., and spending the night. I think we were at the Watergate Hotel, if I'm not mistaken.
Interesting.
And I got homesick there, but then I got used to being away from home. And so, at any rate, yeah, I chose the Air Force, and I think it was a great choice.
How long were you in the Air Force?
For 12 years.
12 years? That's a long time. What was your rank when you left?
I was a staff sergeant.
Okay. So I never served in the military, but I was always told that the sergeants are the ones that run everything. Is that true?
Yeah. There are different levels, of that. And in the civilian side, I would probably be considered probably a second level, because there was an actual, what they called a buck sergeant, which would be more or less the first level there. The staff sergeant could be that as well, depending on the corporate.
So sergeants are basically the managers. They're the ones.
They're what's called non-commissioned officers.
Right, NCOs. Okay.
Yes. And I had a crew, and this was initial. This was just one thing that I did. That's after I started going up in rank there, and then other opportunities presented itself because I began to get introduced to technology.
Okay.
In fact, I believe, I'm pretty sure that we were pioneers, we being the military, were pioneers of the email system. And I was the hospital was right there as well, but we had to have a good way of communicating between bases, logistic type of things. And so that system was created for us to log into a particular system and get certain information.
Okay.
And that evolved into just sending that information, in what they call packets and that sort of thing. And then that led on to other, developments in technology, and me getting involved with total quality management.
Okay.
Because
so for our viewers, tell them what total quality management is for the ones who don't know.
Well, total quality management is a philosophy of how you approach and manage quality. Instead of reinventing the wheel in all cases there, you would take what is working and build upon that, improve on that in a continuous way, made famous by, a number of different quality gurus, most notably Edward Deming.
In the U.S., right.
Yes. And his nemesis, Mr. Crosby, who was the zero defect guy. And we did more Deming. And so, and this was a program that was embraced, by the military. The Congress passed a lot of legislation, and we were directed to do things more efficiently. We didn't have to worry about budgets and revenue and things of that nature, but they didn't want us to waste things, time or resources or anything like that. So there was a big push for that. And at the time, I was in the right place at the right time, and they offered me the opportunity to teach and first to learn, TQM, and then to teach the foundation course for it.
So what did you learn from all that? You'd sort of risen through the ranks. You're, a higher level sergeant in the military, in the Air Force.
Yeah.
And you're learning total quality management. I might add that one of the ways that Jesse and I intersect is that I learned total quality management, Toyota production system, and those types of issues on the hospital side, because the hospitals wanted to get more efficient. And a lot of that had to do with Lean Six Sigma, which basically is having no mistakes and no problems. And we in the hospital management followed or follows or have followed the military in that regard, particularly the Air Force, because they figured out a way to keep the planes in the sky.
Yes.
And so that was pretty close to what we were trying to do in hospitals to keep patients alive. And so the two, there's a lot of overlap, is what I'm trying to say.
I agree. I totally agree with that. And we'll speak a little bit about AT&T's and their Six Sigma
Right.
That came into play there.
So how did you get to AT&T? Where does AT&T come into all this?
Well, after the Air Force, my life is just like I said, it's just very, very full. Had I filled out, and I will still do that, filled out that interview form there, it would have been difficult to try to pick and choose.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of intersection and a lot of overlap there. But because me and about 40,000 or so people were downsized out of the Air Force.
You can get downsized out of the Air Force?
Yes. As a matter of fact, I believe the name of the bill was Graham-Rudman.
I remember the Graham-Rudman bill.
Yeah. And so that bill, I believe, it dictated specifically to the military that, we were already trying to be as efficient as possible. They wanted us to be even more efficient to the point that they started closing bases and reducing workforce. We were getting ready to get into the first Desert Storm and all of that, but that it didn't seem to matter to them. And so they just started, forcing people to do things there. And I and my particular, what they call AFSC, got caught up in that. And, so I was, I've been a technician, I've been a training instructor, I've been a teacher. And my last position was that of an instructional systems designer. And I'm getting to the AT&T part of it.
Instructional system designer sounds like engineering to me.
It really isn't, but I guess it could be, but it really isn't, because basically what it was, we would get projects. It was a very small group of us. We would get projects. In fact, the building is still out there at what used to be Norton Air Force Base in San Bernardino.
Okay.
Which is now, Amazon and Stater Brothers distribution centers and stuff like that.
Interesting.
That building is still there. I still see it, regularly. But anywho, we would get projects from various organizations, mostly maintenance organizations. And this goes to what you were talking about as far as efficiency. And we were tasked with developing training plans for recertification and certification of Air Force personnel, maintenance personnel. And so we were given, different assignments there. And we would develop a teaching outline. And from that teaching outline, we would develop a shot list. We would do both stills and video. And we would go out, whatever the subject matter was, we would go out and film clips, images that would go with the teaching outline there. And then we would develop a script, and then we would voice the script. We would go into a studio and we would voice the script. The video and the regular still photos we developed ourselves. This was we would go into an actual dark room. I was trained to do that. Go into a dark room and actually.
So this was in the military still.
Yeah, this is all in the Air Force there, and then we would put that together in a package, and then we had to validate that training program. And so we would bring in a study group. This usually took, anywhere from 60, sometimes 90 days, depending on the complexity. And we would test until we got a particular pass rate based on, the slide tape or the video that we produced.
Okay.
And then from that, it was packaged and then, sent out to the organizations, for their training. And
so how did all of that get to AT&T? Because you had said that you've been 25 years at AT&T. That's and that also, that's a glimpse into the origins of the production skills, by the way.
So after being honorably discharged from the Air Force, I had some time on my hands.
Uh-huh.
And so I did a lot of studio work as a on-air personality and DJ at a radio station while stationed in Texas.
Okay.
KAZI. And in fact, we were instrumental in changing the sound of the city, of the top 40 radio stations.
Okay.
Had to shift because we were moving the crowd, as they say. And I had a show from started at from like 3 to 6 a.m. in the morning, and then I got to prime time 12 to 3. And so, at any rate, I did that without really any training, not formal training. So after I got out of the Air Force, I said, I want to try going to broadcasting school. Kind of the, and so that's what I did. And it was a school.
You went to broadcasting school?
Yes, in Huntington Beach. And after I graduated, that's another story there. But in fact, after I graduated, they hired me on as a guidance counselor. And so I stayed at the school and counseled students. And there was this one gentleman that seemed to always was challenged with getting to class on time. And he came to class at night. And so, I brought him into the office and asked him, how are you doing? And, how's everything in your life and family, this, that, and the other, blah, blah, blah. And I've noticed that, you're always walking in, the door a little bit late there. What's going on with you? He says, well, it's kind of hard for me to get off from my job. I said, oh, okay. What type of job it is? And he explained what it was. And I said, well, where do you work? And he said, well, I work for Pacific Bell. And I said, oh, Pacific Bell. I said, all right. Well, and so I gave him some options and, to try to help him out. And, and I let the instructors know, what was going on, and, everything, was fine after that. But that kind of stuck in my head that, okay, this job is rewarding, but it's not necessarily making the ends meet. It stuck in my head that he worked for, a very large company with a chain of command, a little bit of a bureaucracy and that sort of thing. I said, that's similar to the military. And I knew that I had some skills, education, and a desire to do more than what I was doing.
Okay.
Which was rewarding, but again, I felt I could do more. And so I looked them up, seen where their employment office was, and before they opened up, I was already at the door. I'm that guy. I'm usually early to play. Okay. That's when I'm most comfortable and feeling most confident. And so they hired me on as an operator. Now, I think that they had some sort of veterans program as well.
Okay.
I may have benefited from that, but I'm not certain. But
did you feel that your time in the military helped you educationally in terms of opening doors to career opportunities and that sort of thing?
Most definitely. However you get it, preparation is proper. You have to get some sort of preparation, formally. And in fact, as it relates to TQM, everything is continuous. As far as learning and everything goes, you don't ever stop learning. At least I don't.
Right.
But just to wrap up that the transition from the military to then Pacific Bell was as a result of that student, and he piqued my interest, and even at that time, Pacific Bell was known as a technology type of company, although the quote unquote phone company, and I knew that or felt that you get in there, something that many people, including Reverend Collins and others, have said. You just get your foot in the door.
Right.
And then, you can make a difference. I always felt that I can do things even before I knew how to do things. I would just do it. I would just, like I said, start with that question of what if this or that was this way or that way. And then I took the initiative to try to, make that a reality.
So
And
you're willing to take a risk.
yes, yeah. I mean, you know, sometimes calculated, many times just a stepping out on faith, not necessarily a leap of faith,
Okay.
because that's perhaps foolhardy, but actually, being prepared in some way. In other ways, just having, pure desire, to do something.
Well, oftentimes that's a quality of leadership that you have to, that everybody wants to do it, and many may want to do it, but many times only the leaders will try because
Right.
there's always the risk of failure. There's always the risk of looking bad or whatever that fear is that one may individually have. But it sounds like that throughout your life, you've taken a lot of those risks, or at least asked the question,
I
you know,
have. I
what
have.
if this and what if that type thing.
And then on the flip side of that, I believe that other people ask that same question, and then they have, as part two of that question, who could we get to do that?
Uh-huh.
And depending on how you've positioned yourself, either intentionally or unintentionally, in the circles that you run in or people that you associate with, you become known. Your product, character, and all of that precedes you.
Right.
When something comes up available, you're one of the first people that they think of. At least in my mind, I'm thinking that's how it goes.
No, that makes sense. That's called networking. Yeah.
Because when AT&T eventually purchased, well, we went through SBC, and then
Right, when they broke up the big telecommunication systems.
then start bringing the bells back together again under AT&T again.
Right.
And I was promoted into management there. I managed, in a number of different capacities. And looking back on some of that, I know I had, some education and some qualifications and that sort of thing there, but some of the positions, I'm like, I don't know how I got in there, but I had a number of mentors as well that saw some things in me, apparently, because they were the ones that were tapping me on the shoulder saying, hey,
Okay.
I think you would be good in this position here. And I'm like, okay.
And that's another requisite that you need, regardless of who you are or what area, you need help. We all need help. I clearly had a lot of people who helped me that I didn't know why or whatever. And I think it's good to recognize that however good you are or good you think you are, whatever, we all need help.
Yes.
And that's what gets us to that next level, or they write that good letter, or they give that good word of recommendation, et cetera, that we're connected in multiple ways. What would you say would be the top 2 or 3 things that you've learned, to date, going through all of that, through the, your upbringing at home and, high school, the things that you did through the military? What are the top 2 or 3 things that stick out that you've learned that sort of guides you now to date?
Top 2 or 3 things would be just to, never give up, to stay focused, that you have God on your side. I was raised that way,
Right.
that when things get tough, you just start praying, you continue praying. You try to always, as the saying goes, if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. If you stay prayed up, then you're always in that frame of mind.
Right.
With the teaching of the Bible to always be in a prayerful, always have the prayerful attitude, pray without ceasing.
Okay.
It's also translated to be, and so that, as well as another scripture, and I've had it throughout my whole life, Romans 28, and that is that all things work together, for good for those who love God.
Okay.
According to according to your calling, due to his purpose, which becomes your purpose, and I've always been about helping others. I've always used that phrase, I can help you with that, or I can help with that, because it's always been in me. And I believe that is a result of, the leadership of my mother and my father.
Okay.
They always, helped others, and others, a lot of people came to them. That's what I saw a whole lot too. My father was a wise guy, and people would always come to him. And he only had a seventh grade education.
Okay.
But he knew that Bible backwards and forwards. He was the director, what we call training for service, which also called BTU back in the day.
Uh-huh.
And my mother, she was on the usher board. But my dad, he was renowned and revered, everywhere. And it used to tickle him as to the heights that he was able to attain. And he gives it all to the Lord. And that was my example. And I've used that, throughout my life. It has helped me, because I've been through some valleys, and I feel sorry for those that don't have hope. I always have hope, and it's based in, scripture, and it has proven to be real for me. I've had to test it in a number of cases there.
Understood.
And it's like, Lord, if you're not for real, I'm not here.
Got it. Well, there's no question that I think your hope and your faith, which was established for you by your parents very, very early, and certainly have sustained you throughout your life in terms of being selected to be leaders or a leadership roles very, very young, whether in church or other types of places, all the way through the Air Force, through AT&T. And I I can honestly say there would be no Healthy, Wealth, and Wise podcast but for your involvement, because you had the idea. And it's those ideas that basically take us to the next level. I know that you're a very, very busy person. I want to be respectful of your time. Are there any parting thoughts that you would like to leave with us before we let you go?
Stay tuned for part 2.
Sounds good.
There's just
so much.
So I'm looking down, because I had jotted down a few things there, and because as you might imagine, over a 25-year career at AT&T, and lots of stuff happened.
No, that's fine.
My office, and this is along the lines of leadership as well. I was leading a group of what they called RAs, or which were basically people that received orders and they redid the order in the system. They systems work.
Right.
With the recent change management or maintenance area. At any rate, we received a call. It was urgent. President Reagan had died. And so they had to put together teams, to get things ready up there. Where's the library at? I forget wherever the library was, or eventually was.
Okay.
So there was a lot of orders, and the orders are just packets of information that you have to build phone lines, you have to build conduits, and all that, all electronically, to send out to the field for the men and women to go out and do the construction part of it, to set up for this funeral. And we had to get done stacked.
Well, I think that's an excellent cliffhanger to leave it.
Yes. Like I said, it can
go part 2. What happened within and outside of AT&T when the president of the United States died?
Yeah.
What was involved, and clearly, I'm sure you would have some insights that most of us would never know or would never have. But we want to thank you for your very precious time, and thank you for being with us today. And we will be in touch and to develop part two of our interview with Jesse L Hammonds. For those of you who are watching, please remember that this is one of our many podcasts that we do, approximately one podcast per week. And we ask that you continue to follow us and become patrons. And as we always like to say, be the change that you want to see in the world. Thank you very, very much. Have a great evening.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise podcast with Dr. William T. Choctaw, MD, JD. Be sure to check out other great episodes covering areas of health, wealth, and wisdom at thwwp.com. And while you're there, be sure to check out the books, blogs, and other literature in your preferred format. And don't forget to leave a review, subscribe, share, and support the podcast. That's at thwwp.com. You've been listening to the Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise podcast with Dr. William T. Choctaw, MD, JD.